The Department of Homeland Security's refusal to release the records of Prince Harry.
There is a moment in every carefully constructed public narrative when the architecture begins to show its cracks. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in small, undeniable ways that accumulate until the structure can no longer hold the weight of what it was built to conceal. For Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, that moment is not approaching. According to veteran investigative author Tom Bower, it has already arrived. Bower is not a gossip columnist. He is not a tabloid provocateur. He is one of Britain's most respected and feared investigative biographers, a man who has spent decades dismantling the carefully curated public images of some of the most powerful people in the world. His subjects have included Robert Maxwell, Richard Branson, Tony Blair, and Simon Cowell. When Tom Bower turns his attention to someone, the results are rarely comfortable for the subject. And right now, his attention is firmly, methodically, and with characteristic precision, fixed on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. What makes the current moment different from anything that has come before is not just what Bower is saying. It is who else is now saying it alongside him. Because the questions that Bower spent years raising largely alone, questions about money, about immigration status, about the authenticity of the Sussex public narrative, are no longer confined to royal commentary circles or independent media channels. They are being asked by financial analysts, immigration attorneys, tax specialists, and investigative journalists who spent years looking the other way and have now, for reasons worth examining closely, decided to look directly at the story in front of them. The financial picture that cannot be ignored. Let us begin where Bower himself consistently begins. With the money. Because money, as any serious investigative journalist will tell you, is where the truth tends to live longest before surfacing. When Harry and Meghan departed from royal duties in early 2020, the financial logic underpinning their decision appeared, at least superficially, to make sense. They had star power. They had global name recognition. They had a story that the world's biggest media companies wanted to be part of. Netflix came knocking. Spotify came calling. Publishing houses competed for Harry's memoir. The commercial runway looked substantial. But Bower, even at the height of Sussex commercial optimism, was asking the questions that others were not. He pointed to the fundamental structural problem underlying every deal the Sussexes were signing. Their commercial value was entirely dependent on their royal connection, the very connection they were simultaneously attacking in interviews, documentaries, and eventually a memoir. You cannot simultaneously weaponize your royal identity for profit and publicly dismantle the institution that gave you that identity without creating a contradiction that the market will eventually price in. And the market has priced it in, decisively and without mercy. The Netflix relationship, once described in breathless media coverage as a partnership that would reshape streaming content, has effectively wound down without producing the volume or quality of content that justified the reported deal value. The Spotify arrangement, reportedly worth tens of millions of dollars, ended after the production of 13 podcast episodes, with Spotify executives making their assessment of the partnership's commercial value abundantly clear through their decision not to renew. The lifestyle brand launched with elaborate fanfare and celebrity gifting has failed to generate the commercial momentum its launch suggested was coming. Speaking engagements, once a reliable revenue stream for high-profile public figures, become significantly harder to sell when your approval rating sits at 20% among the population most likely to attend. Against the collapse of these revenue streams stands a cost base that has not collapsed. Bower has consistently cited a minimum annual lifestyle cost of £3 million after tax, and that figure represents a floor, not a ceiling. The Montecito estate, the security detail, the staff, the travel conducted at a standard befitting royalty, the legal teams engaged in ongoing litigation, the public relations infrastructure required to manage a narrative under constant strain. These costs do not shrink because the income that was supposed to fund them has evaporated. They continue, and they must be met from somewhere. The inheritance Harry received from his mother, Princess Diana, has been widely discussed as a significant financial cushion. But a cushion, however substantial, depletes when it is drawn upon continuously to fund a lifestyle that generates insufficient income to sustain itself. Bauer and serious financial analysts examining the Sussex situation have raised pointed questions about the trajectory of these finances and what happens when the runway runs out. More critically, they have raised questions about what American tax authorities make of a financial picture that involves substantial visible expenditure on one side and a considerably less clear picture of income on the other. The immigration question that will not go away. Of all the legal and regulatory questions circling the Sussexes, the one involving Prince Harry's United States visa status is perhaps the most straightforward in its legal framing, and perhaps the most extraordinary in its implications. American immigration law contains clear and consistently enforced provisions regarding drug use. Specifically, admitted use of controlled substances constitutes grounds for visa denial or revocation. This is not an obscure clause buried in regulatory fine print. It is one of the better-known provisions of American immigration policy, enforced with considerable rigor against ordinary applicants who disclose far less than what Harry voluntarily put into print, recorded in his own voice, and distributed globally through his 2023 memoir. In that memoir, Harry described in considerable and candid detail his use of cocaine, cannabis, and psilocybin mushrooms. He did not allude to this use. He did not reference it obliquely. He described it specifically and personally, and then recorded himself reading those descriptions aloud for the audiobook edition. Whatever one's views on drug use or on the wisdom of public disclosure, the legal question this raises under American immigration law is clear, documented, and has never received a satisfactory official answer. The Heritage Foundation filed a Freedom of Information Act request seeking access to Harry's visa application and related immigration documents. That request was blocked by the Department of Homeland Security during the previous administration. The blocking of that request did not answer the underlying question. It simply prevented the public from seeing how or whether that question had been addressed by immigration officials. Bauer has consistently made the point that the protection Harry appears to have received from the normal application of immigration law represents precisely the kind of double standard that the current American political climate finds most offensive. The question of whether a British royal with publicly admitted drug use is being treated differently from the thousands of ordinary people denied American visas annually for far lesser disclosures is not a fringe question. It is a question of institutional fairness that immigration lawyers and legal commentators are raising with increasing directness. The narrative inconsistencies Bauer has documented. Beyond the legal and financial questions, Bauer's broader contribution to the Sussex story has been his meticulous documentation of the gap between the official narrative the couple has presented and the factual record that careful research reveals. This work, which formed the core of his book Betrayal published in 2022, established a factual foundation that subsequent commentators and researchers have continued to build upon. The story of how Harry and Meghan met, presented publicly as an organic, chance encounter arranged through a mutual friend at a London private members club in 2016, has attracted sustained scrutiny from researchers who have examined the timelines, the connections, and the particular individuals involved in engineering that introduction. The name Marcus Anderson, a well-connected figure in the Soho House social world, appears repeatedly in this context. Bauer has noted a fact that is genuinely striking given everything else we know about how Meghan operates socially. She is, by Bauer's documented account, someone who moves through social relationships instrumentally, discarding people with notable efficiency once their utility has been exhausted. Yet Anderson has remained in the Sussex orbit long after virtually everyone else from their pre-Megxit social world has been quietly dropped. The person who survives the purge is always worth examining carefully. Bauer's assessment of Meghan's career trajectory before Harry is similarly grounded in documented research rather than speculation. His portrait is of a woman of exceptional personal ambition who, from very early in life, understood that ambition alone, without the talent to match it, required a different kind of strategy. A strategy built on access, on proximity to power, on the cultivation of relationships with people who could open doors that her professional achievements alone could not. This is not a moral judgment. It is a structural observation about how a particular kind of ambition operates in the entertainment world and beyond it. What the polling numbers actually mean. The YouGov polling data released in connection with what would have been Queen Elizabeth's centenary provides the clearest quantitative picture of where the Sussexes stand in British public opinion. The numbers for the senior royals are strong. Queen Elizabeth recorded 81% positive. Princess Diana 77. Prince William 76. Catherine 75. Even King Charles, who has navigated genuinely significant personal and institutional controversy throughout his reign, records 60%. Prince Edward, never a dominant figure in public royal life, sits at 53%. Harry records 30%. A man who, at the height of his popularity, was genuinely one of the most beloved public figures in Britain, someone who carried the deep emotional legacy of his mother's death and channeled it into years of genuine charitable work, now finds 7 in 10 of his own countrymen viewing him negatively. The trajectory of that decline is not a gradual erosion. It is a collapse, and it correlates precisely with the decisions he has made since his relationship with Meghan began to reshape his public behavior and his public statements. Meghan records 20%. 80% of the British public views her negatively. The commercial implications of that number are not subtle. No mainstream brand builds an association with a figure that 8 out of 10 of their potential customers actively dislike. No serious media partner wants that albatross around a content deal. No speaking engagement organizer can justify premium fees when the speaker is viewed unfavorably by the vast majority of people most likely to attend. The brand value that was supposed to sustain the Sussex commercial project has not merely weakened. It has structurally collapsed in the market where it mattered most. The convergence Tom Bower predicted. What is happening right now is not a single story breaking. It is the convergence of multiple threads that have been building for years, reaching a point of simultaneous visibility that Bower anticipated and documented before most mainstream observers were willing to acknowledge any of them. The financial pressure is real and documented. The immigration question is real and legally specific. The polling collapse is real and commercially decisive. The questions about the accuracy and completeness of the Sussex public narrative are real and increasingly being asked by voices that cannot be dismissed as fringe or partisan. And behind all of it is the approaching reality of a transition in the British monarchy that will, when it comes, remove the last institutional ambiguity about where Harry and Meghan stand in relation to the royal family. Bower has been clear about what he believes will happen when William ascends to the throne. The Sussex titles will go. The prince designation will go. The children's titles will go. There will be no negotiation, no pathway back, no partial reconciliation that allows the commercial exploitation of royal adjacency to continue under new branding. William has watched what the Sussex project has done to his family, to his brother, and to the institution he will one day lead. He has drawn conclusions. Those conclusions will have consequences.